Welcome to the Dr. Chris Podcast, a space where I delve into all things movement, fitness, and wellness related. Today's guest is Nolan Womack, a fitness trainer and gym owner based out of Lebanon, Oregon. Nolan promotes a training approach that seeks out structural imbalances and develops mobility as a way to bulletproof the body and elicit freaky athleticism. He is on a mission to become the fittest father of four without sacrificing family time, and he wants to help 1 million people live better lives. In our discussion today, we talk about his philosophy of fitness training that is subtly espoused by his preservation of family time. We also discuss how his overarching training philosophy differs from conventional gyms and the standard approach to strength and conditioning training. Our discussion covers how Nolan feels his philosophy is integrally tied with injury prevention and how it ties to athlete performance. For more insightful interviews from a wide range of athletes, professionals, subscribe to the Dr. Chris Podcast on YouTube. For long-form content related to human anatomy, injuries, and injury prevention, check out the Dr. Chris Raynor channel instead. And finally, if you're looking for exercise tips and workouts related to mobility and strength training, subscribe to my online gym, Human 2.0 Fitness, on YouTube. And now, let's get to our guest. I am very excited to speak to today's guest. I have with me today, Nolan Womack. So first things first, my man, who is Nolan Womack?
So first, I want to say I'm really grateful for the chance to be here and talking with you today. But Nolan Womack, I'm a husband, I'm a father of four, I'm a trainer and a gym owner. I like working out and I like sharing that with other people. That pretty much sums it up. That's me.
Perfect, man. Well, listen, I noticed several of those things when I saw you on Instagram, and that was why I said to myself, yo, I gotta talk to this guy. All right. So you mentioned a little bit there, but what is it that you do as an occupation day to day?
So I'm a gym owner and a trainer, and we do a little bit of social media stuff, my wife and I, but every day I coach about 6 hours. So I'm going in and out of the gym and working with clients and helping them with strength training, flexibility, mobility work, conditioning, whatever their fitness goals are.
Okay. Now, so you're a gym owner. Like, were you always a gym owner, or were you a trainer first and then a gym owner? Like, how did it transpire that you became a gym owner, and how long have you owned the gym?
Yeah, so I was not always a gym owner. I've been a trainer for about 14 years, and I did that full time for a year or two, and then I started doing it outside of helping my dad with the family business. So we tested backflow prevention assemblies, stuff that just connects to the drinking water, make sure it stays clean. We did that for 6, 7 years while I kept training before and after work. After a while of doing that, we decided that wasn't what we wanted to do. So we decided to go full in on starting a gym. We moved cities, didn't know anybody where we were. So I kind of started doing stuff online, tried building a presence that way, tried helping training people online. Then I started getting involved at a local gym, started coaching there, got involved training there. After a few months of that, 2020 happened. The gym shut down for a while. Over the time that the gyms had to be shut down, the owners approached me and were like, hey, do you want to buy the gym? I told them when we can open up. Sure. So June 1st of 2020, that's when we took over. And we've been doing that full time since.
Yeah. All right. So, trainer for 14 years, but in specific, what is your background in strength and strength and conditioning training and fitness?
Yeah. So this is going to sound odd, but when I was going through college and I was studying exercise science, and I read a blog post back then, 14 something years ago, and I don't remember who even wrote it, but they were talking about how your ability to get people results matters more than the specific like credentials that you have.
Sure.
And I dropped out of college and started training at the local gym. So I got whatever ISSA personal training cert to legally be able to do that, get insured. Over the years, I kept studying. So I dove into, got certified through CrossFit, had a few degrees or a few certs through them. I went through the ATG for Coaches program. So currently I have the level 2 ATG coach. And that's the most recent thing, but tons of book work, tons of mentoring, studying others, books, seminars, conventions, things like that, hiring other people as coaches, trying to learn from some of the best people out there.
So if you think back to the training that you've done and the certifications you've done, which thinking then forward to what you do now, which of these certifications, and this is not in any way trying to belittle or trash talk anybody or promote
right.
anybody, but as a gym owner and somebody who's dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, which of the certifications do you think has been most valuable for you and what you do today?
Yeah, I think the ATG for coaches cert has been the most valuable. To get that one, it was unique, and you had to meet the performance standards of movements yourself. When I initially went through it, you also had to pass a test. So they had a test component, they had the performance component, and then you also had to get a client to pass the performance standards. So it was a little bit about knowing how to walk the walk yourself, but then how to help somebody else walk the walk.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I felt like that was, I mean, far and above just passing a weekend test.
Most definitely, man. I like that. And so one of the other people that I have interviewed on this podcast is Ben himself. So we've talked about his certification, things I agree with, things I don't agree with. But overall, I love what Ben is doing. And he's made rehab into something sexy, which is people never really want to do it, but he's turned it. He's found a way to kind of put lipstick on the pig and make it look really sexy and to get people wanting to do it. And so I think that is a very powerful and a very valuable thing that he has done. So I appreciate him for that, you know. Let's get right to one of my biggest questions for you today. It won't be the hardest one, but it's one of my biggest. Why do you want to be the fittest father of four, man?
That's a great question. So to me, fitness means like what you're capable of physically, right? When I grew up, I was always a small guy. I was always slow, weak. I had like a 12-inch vertical jump in high school. Like I was always small. I was constantly aching and in pain. And then through fitness and exploring, like, hey, there's performance-based training, not just training to make a muscle bigger, not just bodybuilding, because that was my introduction to fitness, was bodybuilding. And I learned you can get stronger and you can get faster and you can feel better. I learned, hey, fitness means like ability. And I want my kids to have the example of what's possible, since I've become curious about what's possible. I want to know, what am I actually capable of in this lifetime? And another thing, when I was growing up, I felt like everybody older than me would tell me, wait till you're my age, wait till you're 30 and your knees don't work anymore, wait till and it just kept happening. And I noticed as I kept training and I kept working out and I kept improving and I kept increasing my fitness, that I wasn't running into those same problems. I have healthy knees now. Like I've been able to do the things and reverse some problems that I used to have. And there's some really famous people from back in the day, like George Hackenschmidt, that, Ben's talked about that. I mean, he was hurtling over chairs into his 80s and 90s. And so I want to be able to look back and tell my kids, like, wait till you're my age and you can actually, I learned how to backflip just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing things now I couldn't even think about doing when I was their age. So I just want to be able to set that example for them.
Cool. I think that's amazing, and there's something that you touched on there about not just like the whole performance aspect of it. I've spoken to a number of tactical operators, both special forces guys from the United States and Canada, and one of the things that was a common thread. And don't get me wrong, a lot of those guys are jacked AF, and they're super strong. But one of the things in particular that the Canadian operator had said to me was talking about, like, for the selection process, where guys think that they're trying to get the strongest or the fastest guys or the guys who are the best swimmers, when none of that's not necessarily true. They're looking at the guys who can perform and do the widest variety of tasks and under arduous conditions and under a lot of stress, right? And it comes down to function. And I remember speaking to Pat McNamara, also, where he was talking about training, so that training. He talked about 4 reasons why you train, and I can't remember if I remember all 4, but basically protect yourself, protect those that you love, kick ass, and there was one other one. Basically it comes down to function, right? And I would love to be able to, when I'm 70, I don't necessarily need to be the biggest guy, the most jack guy, but I want to be able to function. I want to be able to run. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to be able to lift shit up. So yeah, I think that's very, very important. Um, one question, and I talked about this a little bit before we came on. So whose idea was that marketing? Because like I said, Fittest father of 4 is genius marketing, bro. Genius, man. Was that was that your idea, or was that your wife's?
So I work with my wife on a lot, but that was my idea. Um, Before I kind of switched gears, I was training to be a competitive CrossFitter, right? And so I was training for the Open, and I used to work out 42 hours a week to train for this. And that was on top of owning a gym and coaching and training and still we had 3 kids at the time. And then that was when I was just training to maximize, like, how much function can I squeeze out of myself? How much, like, how capable can I become?
Mm.
And I learned there were trade-offs in that. And so I realized, hey, part of who I am is I'm a father, and I can't sacrifice. I don't want to be Superman in the gym and then Clark Kent at home.
Mm.
So how do I maximize both of those? So that's kind of a bottleneck I put there is, hey, to be the fittest father of 4. And then later it was, okay, I needed to trim down. From 42 hours a week, and I strained 5 different muscles in one of the competitions, and it was like full send. And then I couldn't even carry my kids home from school. And I had to tell them, and it broke their heart to see, like, when I told them that, like, oh, you can't jump on my back because I hurt this and I hurt that. I was like, what's the point of even working out if I can't play with the kids? So then I started getting them involved in it. And I realized I was missing something, because there would be days where I would go on runs with my sons, and I'd drag them out of the house, and we'd go through the forest and run for an hour or 2, and just to get out and move. But then there were days they were reluctant to do it and they didn't want to do it. And because the example I was trying to set for them, I didn't want them to not want to be fitter and, like, enjoy those benefits I found for myself. So then I realized there's also the trade-off of not compromising the family time we do have by forcing them to do it. Because when I grew up, I was forced to play certain sports, and being the slow, weak, small guy and playing football, and I was allergic to grass. That didn't go well. So I didn't want that for them, and I wanted them to learn how to enjoy the process of fitness and function.
So that you kind of touched on my next question, which was, what is the significance of being the fittest father of 4 without sacrificing family time? And you touched on that. But more specifically, what is it that you are saying? This is a larger question. And what is it do you think you are saying about training and how it incorporates into your day, based on what you just said about the importance of the family time?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say with it is, it's partially just a reminder to me, like, hey, don't get carried away with this. So there has to be a level of sustainability where we can do the things the kids want to do with them. We're not forcing them to, we're not making them reluctant to go to the gym because we have to do a workout. So there's days as a dad where the training is just not going to be optimal, but my kids do things. So there's times they sleep and I'm awake, and I don't get as much sleep as they do. There's times where they're at school and I'm not, and I have time. So it's using the time that we're not necessarily already going to be spending together and finding a way to maximize that time for it. And typically that looks like, in the morning, I'll go and work out before I go train people, cuts my commute. I'm already at the gym. I work at the gym. That helps. But if I don't get everything done that I want to, because if the workout takes a little longer than it normally does, or if I'm moving slow, then that's just it for the day, and it's try again the next day. So
It's there's a couple of things that you were mentioning as you were talking about your injuries. So when I first heard about CrossFit, I loved CrossFit. One of the reasons why I loved it was work under the curve, man. And as a classically trained athlete, bigger, faster, stronger, it was really exciting to me. And as somebody who had been involved with competitive sports for most of my life, it's like, wait a minute, I can work out and then I can do this hard and I can do more stuff, like get more stuff done in this amount of time, just by turning the wick up. Oh my God, I love this. But one of the concerns I had as an young orthopedic surgeon at that time was about injuries and the potential for injury. And if you walk into my gym now, so my gym is a mobility-based training center. And if you walk into it, people think it's a CrossFit gym because it looks like a CrossFit gym, but we don't do CrossFit. And there's lots of things I love about CrossFit. We do Olympic lifting in our gym. We do gymnastic strength-based training. We do all those kinds of things. But we don't do it with the same intensity that you might see in a CrossFit gym. And we have a lot of our members are ex-CrossFit people who were hurt. They either came to us for physiotherapy or they came to me for surgery or whatever, and they were hurt doing CrossFit stuff. And then they go, oh, geez, man, you guys do similar stuff, but you just do it in a different way. And, it's just kind of a different philosophy, but I still do love that, the work under the curve aspect of CrossFit for sure. I like it, but as an orthopedic surgeon, it's more I don't condone it because it gives me a lot of patience,
yeah.
so
I think, like you're saying, the philosophy of CrossFit makes a lot of sense, of increasing work capacity across broad times and modal domains, and the theory of it makes a lot of sense. I think it's just the application and how it's turned into a sport in itself, and compromising the quality of movement for a little bit faster time here, and that's not been a good recipe for sure.
Definitely. So, for yourself, how often do you train, and how long do your own personal training sessions last on average?
So I'm in the gym 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday is like an active recovery. It's either like some mobility flow that's like 10 minutes, or we'll go on like a longer family walk, maybe like an hour or something then. But my gym sessions, Monday through Friday, they're pretty much about 45 minutes most days. Saturday, because we don't have as early of a morning time, it's normally like an hour and a half or so.
Okay.
So
Given what you mentioned previously about sustainability, 6 days a week and an active recovery day, do you think that this training cadence is possible for everyone? And is it a necessary cadence for everybody?
So I think it's possible for everybody, depending on their schedule and on what their goals even are. I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think that when you approach training in a submaximal way, where most of the things I do aren't at that maximum intensity, makes recovery easier. I do a lot of stuff just to get blood into tissues and to move the body, and motions, lotion. So trying to help hydrate tissues and to articulate my joints and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the gym time is sort of active recovery in itself. There's very little that's like maximal intensity work. I think it's definitely possible to, I know for myself, I used to only work out 2 hours a week, and I was seeing progress. I was getting stronger and bigger and more mobile and all of that. But I also would get so incredibly sore on the days I wasn't working out to recover from that high intensity of training. So I think there's ways you can pull the different levers of frequency and intensity and variety to make it work for everybody. But from my experience, this has worked pretty well for me, and I feel pretty good most days. And then the mental health side of increasing blood flow and all the feel good hormones and stuff that get released. I look forward to it, but I've worked really hard on not being dependent on that and not getting cranky when I don't get a workout.
Sure.
And that was a challenge, but we're kind of there now.
All right. So it's possible. Do you think it's necessary for everybody?
So I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think depending on what everybody's goal is, I don't think everybody wants that non-specialized approach of just overall broad ability. Somebody that's a power lifter, their training's probably going to look different than 6 days a week. So I think that's important to the question too, is like, if somebody that's looking for just generally improving their overall fitness and vitality and longevity, even then I don't necessarily think it's necessary. Some of our clients have had pretty good results improving everything across the board with just twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay. So one of the things that you mentioned there was talking about submaximal loads. And I listened to a podcast before where they were interviewing Firas Sahabi, who is the owner of TriStar Gym in Montreal. And he was George St. Pierre's coach, and he coaches a bunch of MMA guys. And his whole philosophy of training, they never go hard in the gym, never. And his reasoning for that is basically because they're always working at submaximal loads. So his guys are never sore. So they can train every single day. They don't have to do a day off because they're potentially nursing an injury or a strain or anything. They can put in, even though I already said I love the whole idea of work under the curve, he's using the tortoise method instead of the hare. He is using the tortoise approach to work under the curve because it's always submaximal. Nobody's ever sore, nobody's hurt, and then they can put in more days and eventually, over the long run, get more work under the curve. And I see the wisdom and the science behind that. But there is still the competitive athlete part of me that goes, but I love the whole CrossFit idea. I love it. We don't do it in our gym, but I still do like that. But I agree very much with Firas's sentiments and what you just said about the submaximal loads. And I think that is important. And one of the philosophies that I try to, or we try to communicate at our gym, is that we have to look a little bit differently at fitness. There are studies that show that if you are sedentary all day, but yet you work out like a fiend for 2 to 3 hours every day, okay, that, like, work and sedentary behavior are independent variables. So even if you do that, and you compare that to somebody who is active throughout the day, who does a little bit of this, a little bit of that, moving, but they're not sedentary. And even if they don't do a 2 or 3 hour workout hard at the end of the day, the person who is moving throughout the day and active all the time, they end up better off than the person who is getting in those killer workouts. So we try to promote this idea of people living an active lifestyle and changing the way you work. And as a gym owner, that sometimes people would say I should shut up and not say that because I want people to be in my gym, which is true. But I do also want to have promote a message that is wider than just my gym, and that we should try to be active as much as we can throughout the day and live active lifestyles, because I think that's the easiest way to see submaximal loads all the time and be working all the time and putting work underneath the curve. So,
right.
Yeah,
that's one of the funny things people will, when they come into the gym, is one, it's a hard sell as a gym owner. Like, hey, yes, you did all this work to make it into the gym. We have a lot of people that come in that aren't the kind of people that used to work out. So they come in as like beginner workouters, and we're trying to explain them like, it's not like you're not going to run into the ground. Like, we want you to be able to come back tomorrow.
yes,
And there's no workout today that's worth sacrificing tomorrow's, and that it's the consistency across it that helps. Because the gym should only add to your life. It shouldn't take away from your life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're so sore from the gym that you're on the couch all day, it's like, are you really better off? And I'd argue no.
There you go. So here's a question. Is it only, and this goes back to your marketing, because I do love that marketing. Is it only possible for you to be the fittest father of four because you own a gym, bro? Or could somebody else try to challenge you for that title, but by doing it at home or whatever?
So I think the idea of being the fittest father of four, it's a concept, it's an ideal. I think it's a really hard claim for anyone to make that they actually are the fittest father of four. So that's why I'm saying I'm training to be the fittest father of four. But I would argue that yes, being a gym owner gives me some really unique advantages. It's not that it's impossible for somebody else to become a fitter father of two or three or four, but as a gym owner, I get my own experience. And then as I help train others, I get their experience too. And I can see, hey, I can test something on myself, or I can test it on 100 other people. So n equals 100 instead of just n equaling one.
Yes.
And so we can learn faster together because of that. And so that's a unique advantage.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as time goes, I mean, there's plenty of people with more time in their day than I have. So it's contestable.
All right. So, you have done a number of different certifications and you've been training for 14 years, right? So this is obviously enough time for you to develop your own training style, the Womack, the Womack approach. How would you characterize your training style, right? Is it more CrossFit? Is it more ATG? Is it more mobility bit? Like, how would you characterize it?
Yeah. I feel like the root of it's pretty similar to ATG. There's a lot from that. However, it's I feel like the root is we start through that like ATG, right? Like one, we don't do no harm. I think that's the root of it. Do no harm.
Mhm.
We should only be able to add to people's ability. And if we meet them where they're at and we move them 1% forward towards where they want to go, and then in a sustainable way, I think that really summarizes what we try to do. The ATG side of the training is very much like the isolation of the weak links. So identify and isolate the weak links so that we can address them and bring them up. But there's also the integration of the body of the different pieces. So we might do something like a VMO squat to build up that vastus medialis oblique, but we'll integrate it into different jumping or running or very other like athletic expression. So something like a power clean is going to like also stimulate that VMO, but it's reintegrating it after you've built that weak link back up.
Mhm.
So it's a pathway between isolation towards integration, um, through the lens of sustainability.
You own a gym in Lebanon or in Lebanon, Oregon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how if someone said, obviously you're not the only gym there, and if someone said, well, how is it that your gym is different than the other ones? Like, why, bro? Why should I come to your gym, man?
Yeah. So we we try to fix what most gyms have failed to do for people. And we offer, it's kind of a three-pronged approach. So it's like a stool needs three legs to stand.
Mhm.
So we help people with that process. And the three legs of the stool, one is training, the other is nutrition, and the last one's accountability.
Mhm.
So providing those three, we know we can help people create the active lifestyle they're looking for. So with the training, we offer personalized programs for our members. We start off with a basic framework that lets us identify their weak links, gets them into the gym. We know what to expect as they progress through that, but then we know how to adjust their training based on what we find there. There's always a coach at the gym. So they're walked through their whole workout with one of the coaches. Um, it's essentially personal training done in a group setting. So they're never alone in the gym. There's that extra social accountability and social health side of it.
Mhm.
When it comes to the nutrition side, start them off with a framework, and essentially we work on lifestyle skills after that initial framework. So things like stress management, emotional regulation, getting better sleep, how to improve those variables that are the 23 hours that are outside of the gym. Because we know those are a bigger contributing factor, like you were saying, than necessarily what they're doing in the gym itself. And then the accountability side is, if somebody tells me they're going to come in there and they don't show up, I mean, Lebanon's not a very big town. So I probably know where they live. We've knocked on doors before, but when they know I'm waiting for them, and they know other people are there waiting for them, and we do what we can to kind of give that extra layer of accountability beyond when I've gone to other commercial gyms, big Globo gyms. The only time I ever got a call was when my debit card expired and I had to switch it, and the process payment didn't process. So we try to do more than that.
Okay. So one of the things that you mentioned is personalized programming in a group setting. So if I think to my own gym, we do group fitness. We also have personal training, and we kind of run like a CrossFit gym in that we have programming for the day. And we have a trainer that will take them through the program, and then we will scale it up or scale it down for each of the people who is in the class based on their level of ability. But that's how we kind of run through it. We do our own programming. But what you're doing sounds differently. So when you have a group session, everybody's not doing the same program, are they?
Correct. Yeah, they're not. So we have sort of similar. It's a mix between the two. So we have different program tracks. So we have like a power building track. We have like our general, just Northwest Fit track. That's the most similar, where it's several weeks of workouts before it ever repeats.
Mm-hmm.
But we walk through different phases of identifying where their weak links are and addressing those. And we use the app that we use for delivering the programming to our members, lets us personalize their training for them. So we tell them exactly how much they need to lift relative to kind of like their strength level. Mm-hmm. So they know, hey, for their external rotator, they should be able to lift X amount because they could do Y amount on the VMO squat. Mm-hmm. And as they improve, we're able to like raise that level up, or as we need to, we can adjust it. But that helps us know how do we need to tailor their programming for them. And then we stepped away from the set class time. So now we have like 2-hour blocks where it's just coaching hours.
Okay.
To give people the ability to come in when it worked for them during that time.
Okay.
Being a smaller town, we ran into the idea of sometimes people wanted to come in at 5, and some people wanted to come at 5:30, and some wanted to come in at 6. And so everybody wanted a different time. And so we just opened it up where somebody comes in, and part of what we do in that layer of accountability is teach them how to become autonomous with their own training. Mm-hmm. So they come into the gym, we walk them through what they're doing with them. And as they're kind of moving through, the longer they stay over the like months, weeks, months, years, the less they really need us to walk them through everything they're going to do, because they maybe even know as much as us on what they're doing and why they're doing it. Mm-hmm. So as we explain what they're doing, why they're doing, how to make it harder, how to make it easier, our role is kind of becoming a gym buddy. Now, the different program tracks that we do have a conditioning piece, but it lets people kind of flow in and out of the gym. They can come in when it works for them. So if they're going to be late because whatever happened, it took longer to drop their kids off at school, they don't have the pressure of having to be there or skipping their workout for that day. They're able to show up. They start going through their workout when they're ready. If they have to leave early, they don't feel the pressure of missing part of their workout so that they can leave. They can cram it, try to go through it a little quicker. And it helps people not skip their warm-ups, because if they come in late, they're not trying to jump into a Metcon. They know they start with a sled, and they know they warm up in this way, and they just go down the list. So we found injuries dropped as everybody starts doing the warm-up. There's less pressure in that sense. Some people have more time and want to hang out at the gym longer than just that hour block. And instead of trying to run a class while some guy's in the corner screaming and lifting like cleans and snatches and making a lot of noise, it's just everybody's moving through at their own pace. So people that need to go through a little slower, it's no problem. They're able to go through a little slower. People that need to go through a little faster, they're able to do that.
Okay. That's an interesting concept. One of the things that we had tried to do a little bit when we were allowed to be open during COVID, we allowed people that had been with us for more than 6 months to come in as long as a trainer was in the gym, so that it could not be a set time, but say a trainer was there doing PT with somebody else, they could come in and just do the workout And if they had to ask a question, they could interrupt for a minute. And, oh, by the way, what's this? Blah blah blah. And so that's something that we did. But I really like that idea. Actually, I think that's interesting with the block time and everybody just here it is. You know what you're doing, and we'll help out when we need to. I think that's a cool approach. So if you had to distill down to a sentence or two, um, your own personal philosophy. What is Nolan Womack's personal coaching philosophy, and how is this reflected by what you do at your gym?
That's a great question. That's what that is. So I would say if I had to distill my philosophy, it's that everything's developable. And I feel like that's about as simple as I can make it. So everything, the more I learn, the more I realize everything's a skill. And everybody has some level of that skill, even if it's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And skills are learnable. And with the right coaching and practice, people get better at those skills. And even if it's the skill of making it to the gym, sometimes that's the biggest thing that we can do to help somebody is help them consistently come into the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a specific skill, like how to properly do a snatch, like that's more complex skill, but everything's a skill. So I think that also instills kind of the growth mindset that, you can improve all those things if you work on them, and it shifts the focus from results to effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important part about what we do is highlighting effort and like intention over just the outcomes, highlighting the inputs.
I like that very much. That everything is a skill, and that all skills are developable. I often say to people when they ask us about what we do, I tell them that every person is an athlete. Every single person that walks into my gym is an athlete. And I don't care if you're the little old granny and who's just trying to walk and carry her groceries, or we have Paralympians, Olympic athletes, we have professional basketball, professional football players that come into our place. Doesn't matter. Everybody's an athlete. And I try to train everybody like that. And I think that's another way of saying that every skill is developable, right? And if Granny's sport could just be exactly that, carrying her groceries and picking up her grandkids. But I want to make her the best damn granny that can pick up her groceries and her grandkids that I ever could, right? And that is, those actions are a summation of several other different actions, which we can then break down and then train and then put them all back together and allow her to do those things that she wants to do. So I really like that distillation of your philosophy very much. So if you were to look at all of the things that you know about strength and conditioning and fitness training, okay, are there any particular areas that you see as an area of specialization where your coaching is concerned? In other words, yo, man, Nolan Womack, he can do strength, he can do this, he can do that, but this right here, oh my goodness, that's his jam. What is that for you, my man?
So that's with the background of like diving into CrossFit and learning about, hey, yeah, strength and conditioning and this and that, and hyper fixating on everything for some length of time. I'd say if I had to pick one, it would be helping people create long lasting mobility changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with mobility being strength through a range of motion. And so it's a combination of flexibility and strength. So increasing the range of motion somebody can access, and then also increasing like their safety and their ability of handling tension in that whole range of motion. Um, that would probably be the specialty.
Which then is a perfect segue into my next question, although you've probably addressed it a little bit. But, if you look at the fundamental basis, if you strip away all the bells and whistles and you're going down right to the kernel of your training program at your gym, what is that basis? Is it, you know, is it mobility training? Is it classic strength training, CrossFit, calisthenics, gymnastic strength? What is it?
I feel like ability based training is probably the best term I've heard for it, but humans have been working out for thousands of years. So I'm sure it's been called something hundreds of years ago by somebody else. Um,
Well, tell me, what do you mean by that, ability-based training?
so ability based, right? So it's scaled to the level of the individual and what they're capable of. And so I think that is extremely important. There's not an RX load, it's what's RX for you and
Mm-hmm.
based on what you can do. And then ability based also means like with your current range of motion, like what's a pain free threshold for you? What is that submaximal effort for you that lets you come back tomorrow? What range of motion can you even express in the movement? Because to force you to do more than that's probably not going to be helpful. With conditioning work, everything we do is based on performance and like their specific paces. So even that's ability based on what they've done on a 2K row and things like that. So everything's really based on ability.
Okay, cool. Um, and given that, okay, and given that things are personalized, tailored, um, giving people, allowing people to see success as they train is an important part of motivation. So, given that it's personalized, um, do you have a set range or a particular range of progression that you are driving towards for each of your clients? For example, uh, they did X amount of time on a 2K row, and that was a month ago. And when you do their programming, are you um, moving it towards a particular number to say, okay, well, you did that time, so we're looking to shave 5 seconds off or 10 seconds off by a month from now? Like, what is your rate of progression for these people?
So especially with something like the conditioning, there's so much constant variance in it where we're training different energy systems. And there's a lot of that element still of CrossFit where it's seemingly random, but there's enough parallels between how they do on in like a lactic aerobic energy workout versus like a lactic aerobic workout or whatever that threshold is that we're training. So it's mostly if there isn't like we want to see a 5% increase in this over the next 6 weeks. I think that progress. So I think, yeah, progress is obviously very motivating. And something I try to do is help people shift how they look at what their goals are.
Mm.
And I've learned that there's really two main kinds of goals. I always grew up learning about SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. And those are finite goals. And that's okay. I want to have an 8-minute 2K, and I'm currently at a 10-minute 2K. But we almost shift towards the infinite goals, where it's the progressive realization of improvement. So there's constant improvement in something. So helping people see, hey, they didn't get tired when they went on a hike with their family. Because that's what matters. Unless they're an actual collegiate or an Olympic rower, I don't really care what their 2K is, as long as they're getting the benefits that we're looking for from the rowing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's pretty well known like standards we kind of see people go towards. I think there's point of diminishing returns. So we have somebody with like a 7-minute, 20-second 2K. It's like super fast on the rower. I think there's a lot of diminishing returns if he brings that down to a 7-minute. So to shave, you can only get that so fast before he's doing Olympic level, like rowing. And for the quality of his life and what he's looking for out of working out, what he really wants from joining a gym and training isn't to be the world's best rower. It's not to be the strongest bench presser. So we want to see, yes, their bench press went up, but we want to see they feel better when they're bench pressing too. They see the effects of why they're doing their training is really what we're trying to shift them to work towards.
Okay. So on your website, you have a no sweat consultation for new members at your facility. And I think that this is important for a number of reasons, but what exact, I'm not sure what that is. At least I think I know, but what is that? And why do you have it there? Why do you think it's important?
Yeah. So a no sweat consultation, it's about a half-hour appointment somebody makes to come sit down and we talk. And we just want to learn about why they're looking to join a gym, what they're looking to get out of training, what their background with training is, what have they done in the past, what kind of injuries do they have, if they have any. Also, we're looking at what kind of nutrition approaches they've tried, what things they've liked that they've done, what they haven't liked. And we sit down with them and kind of create a game plan. And so we come up with a plan like, here's how we can help you with what you're looking for. And we roadmap out what that's going to look like. And we found it to be incredibly helpful on, instead of just letting somebody sign up and then show up when they want to come in, and then they just kind of get tossed in with the wolves, we're able to kind of like introduce them and ramp them up into what we're doing. We know, hey, these are the times that we're actually here. Like, does that even work for them? Because if they can't come during our times, like it's just not going to work. We've directed people to different gyms. Somebody that's looking for just like a dance class, it's like we don't have that. So we can point them to a different gym, like, hey, this is going to be a better fit for you. So it's really just kind of a filter process that helps us ensure we can actually help the people that are trying to come into the gym, and that, or we can give them a better resource if we can't help them best. But it lets us just understand them better, where they're coming from and where they want to go.
Okay, cool. The first part of your answer there sparked my memory as to the question that I was going to ask. So with your personalized programs, okay, and then on top of that, with the variety and the rate of progression, to me that sounds like a lot of programming work on your part. If you are the fittest father of four, you are working out 6 days a week, running a gym, plus spending family time. When do you find the time to do all these personalized programming?
Yeah. So, like I was kind of saying before, I got a little side railed or side off track, is so somebody that comes in and they're like, hey, I want to get big and strong. We're probably going to put them into our power building track. And technology is amazing. So it does a lot of the personalizing for us based on their abilities. So we have the framework that they start with based on what their goal is. So somebody that's coming in, like that 75-year-old grandma that just wants to be the best grandma, it's like, cool, we're going to start her with this framework. We'll branch it. We'll put her into a different track as her goals change. Somebody that is training for the open, we have an open prep track. Again, it does a lot of the programming for us. So it only takes me maybe an hour or two on like a Sunday morning when I wake up before everybody. And so I knock it out, get it done, and then it's done for the week. And then I think we have like 13 different tracks depending on what people's goals are. So we have like a postpartum track that progresses somebody from being cleared to move to then being ready to join into like a normal-ish kind of workout program. We have all those different tracks. And so we filter them into which one's the most closely linked to their goal.
Yes.
And then because we're trying to teach them how to become autonomous, they learn how, hey, they need to do more of this movement or more of this movement or this one. Like, this is how they're going to adjust their approach. And so we do that during the sessions with them when we see, hey, we noticed this guy's having a hard time keeping his elbows up on a front squat. Well, seems to be a lack of like upper back strength to do that, or it's like a lat mobility thing. And so we can kind of troubleshoot that in the moment with them.
Yes.
give them some tools and resource like idea of like, hey, we should work on these couple things, and then turn them to go do that.
Mhm. So is this a proprietary software that you're using, or is this some like a program like that's, like pre-made? Like what are you using to do
Yeah.
this?
So the software is called Fitter, FITR,
Yeah.
and it's it's proprietary to them, but you can program all your own things into it,
Okay.
and that way it does a lot for you. So you can create a totally different workout for every single client that you have, for every
Mm.
single member that you have at your gym. You can have a rolling group calendar in it. So like with Wattify or Sugar Watt or some of the other ones that a lot of CrossFit gyms use. So everybody has the same exact workout, and it lets you plug in. It has a ton of different variables you can plug in. So
Mm.
here's this person's 2K row time, and it'll show you the splits that they should hold based on like what you're telling them to hold. So if you want someone to hold their 2K, you can plug that in, or if you want it to be whatever deviation from that, a little faster, a little slower, you just plug all that into it, and
Mhm.
then every client knows exactly what they need to do when they're in there.
Okay. Um, so your let's shift gears here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Your Instagram feed showed a collaboration that you had with one of your local chiropractors, Dr. Sav. What is your viewpoint on the interaction of fitness training and rehabilitation, and why did you do that collab?
Yeah. So I think fitness training and rehabilitation are on the same continuum. I think that they're an extension of each other, and there's a lot of like they should look more similar than most people seem to have them look. Um, Rehab's not just something you do to get back to training. Um, like you talked about, that's something Ben did really well in popularizing. Is like, hey, that's pretty similar in that sense. So she had recently opened up her practice. So she had just opened up. We were going, introducing ourselves, talking with her. We had some people talk about her. Some of our friends had gone to her. She did great work. As we were talking with her, we really liked that her approach wasn't cookie cutter as a chiropractor. There's a lot of chiropractors who just put you on this maintenance, come in twice a week forever type of
Mhm.
plan. And she believed that everybody has differing needs for chiropractics, where over time she shouldn't be as needed. So it might only be once every few months, depending on what somebody has going on. So in the beginning, something's real messed up, it might be more often, and then it diminishes over time. So we've got a pretty good relationship where if somebody needs something that's beyond my scope, something that I can't do, I don't have an x-ray machine, I'm not a doctor, like I know I can refer people over to her. And then as people graduate outside of her scope, where they've been rehabbed and want to continue on with what they're doing and potentially prevent something like that from happening in the future, we're able to take that to the next level.
Okay. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with the idea of rehab and training being on the same continuum. And I think it goes back to the idea that everybody's an athlete. It's all training, the the continuum is like it's one, and an athlete is just further to the right on the continuum than somebody who is rehabbing, who is further to the left. We treat them the same, we do the same kinds of things, but we scale down appropriately for the people who are rehabbing, and we scale up appropriately for the people who are training. So yeah, I love that philosophy, and I say that to people all the time. So I think that's very important, and I think it's also good to build these relationships. And I like that idea that you do that. And I know for myself, that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to build our facility the way we did. And it's interesting because people come to my office all the time and they say, why do you have your office in a gym? Why does your office look like a gym? And I'm like, well, this is what I think rehab is. I think rehab is training, and I am just at a different, I'm seeing people at a different point on the continuum. But my goal is so that you see me and then you see the therapist, And then once you see the therapist, you don't need either of us anymore, and you move on to maintenance and performance and you can do that on your own. And so you carry on along that continuum. So yeah, I think that that's very important. You also, one of the things you also post about is the balance between strength and conditioning training and structural imbalance and mobility. I really like that, but tell me, why do you think that that's important, and why do you post about that?
Yeah. So I think the balance between, so there's kind of a couple parts in that. I think the balance between strength training and conditioning is important because it's great to be capable of like carrying all the groceries in at once. But for longevity's sake, there's a degree of you need both to maximize longevity. Dr. Peter Attia, so studies longevity and all that. He's written books and everything about that. So I'm not going to try to go into all that, but the idea that I think we do best when we have both, and it's the balance between like going into structural imbalances and mobility. Now, structural imbalances are, if you, I've learned, seems that there's a book I wrote, or not wrote, but I read about overcoming poor posture. And he was talking about upper cross syndrome and the way people often think it's, oh, you've got to like stretch out the muscles on the front of the shoulders and the chest to relieve this. And what it often ends up being is underdeveloped upper back muscles that essentially there's more tension on the front side than there is on the back. And when you alleviate that and fix that imbalance, now the shoulder's actually staying in the position it should be, where it's most functional and it's most usable. So the mobility training helps us find those imbalances and alleviate them, so that you don't end up like I did, getting 5 strains because you have underdeveloped hip flexors and adductors, and and you can actually do the things you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like I like the idea of structural imbalance and mobility, because as you mentioned, each joint sort of has optimal ranges through which it operates in terms of range of motion, strength, and all of and other factors. And I often say, for example, to people who present to me with shoulder pain, I said it all starts with the scapula, and the reason being is that the scapula is the stage upon which the glenohumeral joint, or the shoulder as people know it, acts. And if your scapula, if you have scapular dyskinesis, you have poor rhomboids or weak rhomboids, poor upper back muscles, and you have poor scapular kinesthetic awareness, you don't understand what it means to depress or retract your shoulder blades, then you end up having problems like you talk about, where you have increased tension from weak development on the back, development on the front. You end up having shoulder scapula that are elevated and protracted forwards, and that sort of closes down the space available in the glenohumeral joint, and then you start to have problems with impingement anteriorly, and issues that run with that. So I really like the idea of trying to seek out those imbalances and address those. And I am a firm believer that at all levels, but especially at elite levels, when everybody is bigger, faster, stronger, it's not the more bigger, faster, stronger that's going to help you. What's going to help you is the people who have more mobility. So we use that term all the time. So strength through the full range of motion. So somebody who can control their center of gravity better by better utilization of the mobility of the surrounding joints. The person who has better kinesthetic awareness, and the person who has less structural structural imbalances that hinder them, those are the differences, right? Because when everybody can bench 225, 50 times or whatever, when you go to the NFL combine and you got everybody can bench that like 30 times, 40 times, whatever. That's not the difference, right? It's the difference is how they move, how well they move through the range of motion, what range of motion they have available to them when they're moving, and what is their ability to control themselves, both accelerate, decelerate, change direction. Those are the things that matter. And those things are all children. They are all born from the structural immobility, structural imbalances and mobility. So, I you know, it, on the one hand, that's important for people who are rehabbing, but I also think that is a secret weapon for elite performance as well, right? The people who eliminate those things, they basically take the brakes off their performance,
Right. That's an analogy I use all the time when I'm talking to people is with the mobility, I really like to push the idea of we're going after the lowest hanging fruit versus biggest bang for the buck. We all know like, hey, back squats are great, but if your soleus is underdeveloped, like compared to your back squat, like that's something we need to fix. And if you want to make a race car go faster, it's like, sure, upgrade the engine. That's going to make it go faster, but you're going to go a lot faster if you take the brakes off. And you're going to go faster if you don't have flat tires.
Yeah.
So there's some of those lowest hanging fruit where it's like, sure, you could fix the whole engine or just take the e-brake off.
Exactly. Um, uh, you also mentioned that you build bulletproof bodies and you develop freaky athleticism. Okay, man, what's the secret sauce? How exactly do you do that, bro?
So disclaimer, I don't know that it's possible to fully bulletproof a body. Tension, like tissues, they still can get injured when they have more tension than they're ready for.
Yeah.
But with that prefacing this, I think that, yeah, because tensions or tissues can increase their ability of handling tension, and tension is created from load times leverage times speed. So you can manipulate those factors where you can handle more weight in bigger ranges, like we were saying, against more leverage, and you can land faster and more impact and rebound and the redirection of tissues. And as you improve your ability of handling each of those, you are less likely to be injured as an extent of that. So the byproduct of improving or reducing your ability of getting hurt from an increase of tension is that you can express more tension. You can do more with that ability, which is that freaky athleticism side. So it's sort of the bringing that rehab and elite performers together of everybody somewhere in there, and reducing your ability to get hurt lets you do more. You have better hardware for the athletic expression.
Well, it's interesting, for a while, for many years, I was one of the physicians at our city's or one of our city's university football teams, and I used to say that to the coaches when we first introduced, I tried to introduce mobility training to them, and it took many years for them to kind of agree that it's something that they should include for the football team. And one of the things I said to them is like, if you can reduce the likelihood that somebody's going to get hurt, that leaves them on the practice field and on the game field for longer. And the longer that they're on the field, the more opportunities you have for success. So how is that, like it was hard for them to see because it wasn't a bigger, faster, stronger thing. Like, how is this going to help? And I'm like, well, by keeping people on the field. That's how it'll help, right? And if you can keep them on the field, then you actually have more chess pieces in play to do the things that you want.
Absolutely. They get more practice time, so they develop their skills better because they have more hours of actually practicing. They don't miss the opportunity of, if it's like a college football team, they're only eligible for so many years, so they don't miss those opportunities. So that's right.
Um, so, and I think you've really touched on this, but why? So, why is it that you use this approach to fitness rather than anything else that you've learned?
I feel like I've tried all the others and they didn't work. So I I've done so many different things where, I did the bodybuilding route and the aesthetics and trying to look strong and look capable. And that didn't go so well for me. I did the classic bigger, stronger, faster, um, got injured from imbalances. And I paired that with, I was sitting in an office chair 10 hours a day. So that sedentary lifestyle meets high intensity training, and that didn't work for me. So over the years, I've just learned this seems to be working better.
Mhm.
It's lets me keep doing the things I want to do and keeping up with the kids doing what they want to do. So pretty hopeful I'm betting pretty heavy on it that it's gonna let me keep up with the grandkids.
Hopefully so. And I think you just might be onto something. Um, how did you determine that you want to help 1 million people live better? Why not 100,000 K, 10 million, or even 100 million? Why 1 million?
So it's a big enough number, it sounds exciting, but it's small enough, it sounds doable. And to like even quantify what it means to help a million people, I don't even have a great quantifiable way of measuring that, because it's not a million followers, it's not a million views, it's not a million clients, because we've had clients that have done nothing. So did I really help them if they didn't do anything? So it's, I guess it's kind of, it excites the imagination for me. And that's really why 100,000 just doesn't excite me in the same way.
Yeah.
A million seems possible.
Wow, listen, man. I think when I last looked, you're like 200,000 or something like that in terms of followers. So, I think 1 million is easily doable for you, man. So well, no, I'll come back to that. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now, and 10 years from now?
Well, 10 years from now, I'm going to have a couple kids out of college. So that's a tough question to answer. Um, Even 5 years from now, I'm going to have a few high schoolers, and I'm going to be met with different demands than I even know now. So schedules are going to get busier. A couple of the kids are going to be driving. My two sons are going to be driving by then. Um, so hopefully I'm still on this side of the green grass, on the green side of the grass, right? And still able to be blessed with doing what I'm doing and helping other people live better and, getting what they want as well. So
Mhm. And
we'll see what
if you had a magic wand, right, and you could predict right now, where you wanted, your gym to be 5 years from now, what would you say to that?
like the location or just the way it's.
Everything, man. Location, size. What would you think? What is this? This is
Yeah.
make a wish time.
So to be honest, I love the size and space that we have. I think it's pretty much what I always visioned when I was hoping to have a gym and a facility. There's to be able to have things like a pool and hot tub and sauna and cold plunge and some of those like fancy amenities would be sweet. But for the training side of things, it's a great space. It's not so big that it's unmanageable, or I guess people feel cold because there's so much distance between people in there. We've got a great atmosphere in the gym. It's a nice, welcoming environment, so I really enjoy that. Um, some upgraded equipment and stuff for the members would be great. And as better tools get developed, that would be really the answer, is just better outfitted to keep doing some of the things as we're learning them and implementing them. But right now it's about a 5,000 square foot space, and that seems to be pretty good for us. The location's hard to beat. It's in the middle of downtown, so a lot of people drive by it all the time. I guess if we had a parking garage, that'd be cool.
Okay, cool. Um, so if final two questions, okay?
Mhm.
Um, what is the message? If you crystallized it down to one sentence that you want to tell the world about fitness.
So I would want them to know that things can be better than they are. They're capable of making things better than they are.
I'm writing this down. I like that.
Whatever their situation, whatever their goal, they're capable of improving it.
Okay, I lied. I said two questions. This is question number one, part B.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the world's message. Okay, now let's make it a little more personal. What do you want your children? What's the message that you want your children to understand about fitness?
Oh man.
This is
So
your own flesh and blood.
I know that's good because I feel like they've done a phenomenal job of walking the walk themselves, and they're pretty incredible kids. So I'd want them to stay curious, I guess, about what's possible of them, what they're capable of, and um, to understand it's worthwhile and like developing that.
Okay, I like that. And just out of curiosity, are your kids in organized sports at all?
So my younger son, he's in wrestling.
Okay.
They've done basketball, they've done tumbling and cheerleading. They've done Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but right now he's the only one in an organized sport, and that's wrestling.
Okay. Perfect. Uh, last question for real. Where can people find you online, young man?
Yeah. So the best place is probably Instagram, and my username's nwfit.nolan. I think my TikTok's just my name, Nolan Womack. I'm on Facebook. Um, I've got a website, but it's not as up to date as I wish it was. I need to work on that. It's just nolanwomack.com.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, Instagram's probably the best place though.
Cool, cool. Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation, Nolan. I want to thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us today, and share your vision of fitness with us. And I would very much like to see you become the fittest father of four, and see where that journey takes you. So thank you again for being with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. It means a lot. Thank you.